The long-standing border controversy continues between the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Way back in the 1800s, even long before that, Venezuela claimed that a region of land and rivers in Guyana called Essequibo belongs to them. This is the region they call Guyana Essequibo. However, the biggest difference with the dispute this time around is a referendum threatened by the Bolivarian Republic. Last month, the country announced the decision to go this route. The announcement of a referendum sent shockwaves throughout the region, of course in Guyana and overseas. This left curious minds wondering what could possess Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, to resort to this political and bravado tactic. You are watching The Final Takeaway. I welcome you to subscribe to this new channel as we grow our audience of those interested in matters such as this. Remember to hit the bell icon after you subscribe to stay up to date the moment a new video is uploaded on this YouTube channel. Thank you so much. This unprecedented event, meaning the referendum, is scheduled for December 3rd, 2023. It's only a few days away from today. Guyana's government and its citizens see the planned referendum as an existential threat to their country's sovereignty and independence. The nation braces for what could potentially lead to a major fallout between those two neighboring countries and in South America and international stakeholders like the United States. You're in the right place for an update on what's been happening over the past 2 weeks, the upcoming referendum and how it can affect Guyana and even Venezuela. Also, note that the International Court of Justice, known as the World Court or the United Nations Top Court, has ruled it has a right to hear arguments from both countries on the matter and could even possibly decide how they should resolve their long-standing differences. However, things went from lukewarm to very hot when Reuters broke the news that Venezuela had set a referendum date to resolve the dispute with Guyana over a piece of territory called Essequibo. According to the international news agency, and I'm quoting here, Venezuelans will vote on December 3rd in a referendum on the rights over a potentially oil-rich territory in dispute with its neighbor, Guyana. Venezuelan voters are asked to answer yes or no to 5 important questions. Their answers could lead to the government taking it upon themselves to move ahead and obtain Essequibo, Guyana without due legal process through the court. Now, let's turn our attention to what a referendum really is to help you follow along on what, to me, is a complicated issue for many people to understand, especially when we're talking about things like the 1899 Paris Tribunal Arbitration Award and the 1966 Geneva Agreement and its contents, and other legal statements around the border controversy. What is a referendum? A referendum is a big word that simply means a direct vote by the citizens of a country on a law, usually, or a political issue. The issue in this case pertains to the legal ownership of Essequibo, Guyana. The vote is being taken to determine if the Venezuelan citizens agree that they own Essequibo, Guyana, and whether Venezuela should seize the territory and make it its own. As mentioned earlier on, the citizens of Venezuela have to answer 5 critical questions that could affect Guyana in a major and unprecedented way. It is question number 5 that is most disturbing and concerning for Guyana and its people. Question number 5, in essence, wants voters to say if they agree with the creation of a Guyana Essequibo state. In other words, do they agree for Venezuela to seize, annex, or take the Essequibo region of Guyana? On top of that, question number 5 asks if voters agree to a plan to include Essequibo Guyana on the map of Venezuelan territory. As you can see, it is a very bold question and a very bold move if Venezuela should go ahead in defiance of the 1899 Arbitral Award that settled the border dispute a long time ago. Such an action also goes against Venezuela's own agreement under the 1966 Geneva Agreement to allow the International Court of Justice to determine how the border dispute should be resolved. Taking this approach is a blatant affront to international law on how to handle these types of disputes. It can also set off a disastrous outcome, which may involve military action as each country attempts to defend their borders, nation, and their people. Let's take a look at how Guyana is dealing with the so-called existential threat by Venezuela. Guyana is a country with less than 1 million people. The country is rich in oil, gold, and other valuable resources, yet it is considered a poor but developing country. But none of this has not stopped the nation from defending themselves all the way to the International Court of Justice in Hague. The government, the opposition party, and Guyanese as a whole, both local and overseas, are definitely not backing down or giving in to Venezuela's demands and threats. In fact, the current government believes Venezuela is well within its rights to ask its citizens to vote through a referendum. However, according to Ghana's president, Dr. Irfan Ali, this is quote-unquote no ordinary referendum and must be taken seriously. Here's that clip.
Guyana remains and will always remain committed to the peaceful resolution of this controversy with Venezuela, including the controversy over the validity of the 1899 Arbitral Award and the land boundary between our two countries. That is why Guyana, in full accordance with the 1966 Geneva Agreement and the 2018 decision of the UN Secretary General, brought the controversy to the International Court of Justice for a final, binding, and peaceful settlement in accordance with international law. Guyana renew its call to Venezuela to honor its commitment under the Geneva Agreement, to participate fully in the proceedings before the court, to plead its case on the merits to the court, and to comply with the court's final judgment, whatever it may be, as both it and Guyana are obligated to do. We remain hopeful that good sense and adherence to the rule of law will prevail in our sister republic.
Here's the takeaway. The issue is the content of the special voting process, which Guyana perceives as an existential threat to its position as an independent and sovereign nation. If the citizens vote in favor of annexing Essequibo, it can create a critical situation and may lead to military aggression or a possible war between these two neighboring nations. But if, and only if, Venezuela made good on its threats to occupy Guyana's territory, and we're talking 2/3 of Guyana. Not only that, taking a referendum is to flaunt a legal and peaceful approach at solving the dispute. In fact, Venezuela agreed with Guyana to allow the World Court to decide the matter and or give directions as to how to solve it. So, to resort to casting votes on whether to acquire Guyana's land is going backward to the uncivilized way of territorial acquisition. A time when rulers who wanted land, they took it as they saw fit, even if it meant going to war. Present day, we are far more civilized than that, or so we thought, until now with the imminent threat by Venezuela to grab Essequibo. We have at our disposal international laws, international courts, and judges who are capable and in place to help countries settle these disputes or disagreements. Guyana has also taken various measures and steps to defend its nation. Here's a look at some recent show of opposition to Venezuela's claims and how Venezuela responded. On November 14, 2023, Guyana tells the World Court that Venezuelan referendum on territorial dispute is an existential threat. Again, on November 14, Guyana asked the World Court to stop Venezuela's referendum over the disputed territory, which is Essequibo. Guyana also requested that the World Court put provisional measures in place to protect the country from Venezuela's plans to seize Essequibo if the referendum goes through and it acts on its plans to annex 2/3 of its country. And on November 15, 2023, Venezuela had its time in court and they told the World Court the referendum will go ahead as planned despite Guyana's resistance. On November 16, Venezuela asked the World Court to declare Guyana's claim for Essequibo as inadmissible. In other words, they're saying Guyana does not own Essequibo. On November 16, again, the World Court reserved a ruling in the border case between Guyana and Venezuela. In other words, no decision has been made until further notice. Now, this could be an issue because if the court doesn't rule in time, who's to say that Venezuela isn't going to go ahead with its planned referendum and whatever else it plans to do regarding Essequibo? The Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, also told the World Court that Guyana's request to throw out her country's claim to Essequibo and to stop the referendum is quote-unquote unprecedented, extraordinary, staggering, barbarous. 2 weeks before the World Court hearings in Hague, the said Vice President made the following statements at a press conference. And Guyana's she was speaking to Guyana's request to stop the referendum and said it is quote unquote completely insane, absurd, and violate the principle of self-determination of the people. So we have defended with our lives our constitution and right to the Essequibo territory. Here's that clip in Spanish to English translation.
So don't urge the Venezuelan people. Don't provoke the Venezuelans because we are a peace nation. We stand up for peace, for the Constitution, for defending our peace. But we know how to defend ourselves in all fields. You have to let that clear. We are going to defend our rights on the Essequibo, Guyana.
There are other news going around about planned military action, but I am walking a very thin line here, and I want to err on the side of caution, as my goal is not to incite fear or anxiety, especially if I cannot verify the facts. My goal is to provide information that is helpful in understanding the wider issues, and also to ensure that information is factual and accurate. So on that note, please feel free to fact check me in the comment section below on anything I've said here, which I gather mostly from research and from my own analysis of what's happening. Anyway, let's get back to it. So on November 22nd, 2023, Venezuela opposition leader says President Maduro must suspend the vote to annex the disputed oil region, Essequibo, Guyana. Now, come on guys, imagine the country's own opposition party is not in agreement with what Maduro plans to do. Its own opposition party. You would think that a country would unite on such a major issue as this. It could very well be that the opposition party and its electorates believe the claim to Essequibo is baseless, invalid, and without merit. After all, Guyana has already been awarded Essequibo as part of its territory since 1899. The country was British Guyana at that time. So, what will happen if Venezuela makes good on its plans to annex Guyana Essequibo? In short, Guyana could see Venezuela trespassing on its land. However, if the citizens vote for their country to seize and take possession of the oil-rich, resources-rich Essequibo, and Venezuela starts moving ahead in that direction, this can lead to severe backlash in ways we've never seen before. For one, the United Nations could sanction Venezuela in various ways. In fact, Guyanese Attorney General and the Minister of Legal Affairs, Anil Nandlao, reassured Guyanese that this will likely happen, that Venezuela is going to get sanctioned, and we don't know what else might happen in terms of on the international level coming down from the UN. As far as whether Guyana will retaliate or react, or what Guyana will do, all those speculations, all I know, and Guyana has been saying this, they are a peaceful country. Venezuela is saying the same thing. We are a peaceful country, but I'm not sure if what they're planning to do after the referendum, if it leans their way, is really peaceful. But you know, peaceful is subjective to who is saying that they're peaceful. Guyana has not indicated from its government that it has any intention to aggress Venezuela. They want this matter to be resolved through the legal channels. Even though Anil Nandlao, the Attorney General, said that Venezuela could get sanctioned, the ICJ has not yet ruled on the matter that was recently brought by Guyana to stop the referendum and or put measures in place to protect their territory. It seems unlikely that the court may make a decision before the December 3rd referendum goes through. At the same time, who knows, they may fast track the process and issue a temporary order for Maduro to stay or abandon the planned voting process. What about Guyana? How will Guyana respond? The former Foreign Affairs Minister and Guyana's agent on the border case before the ICJ, Carl Greenwich, says if there is a referendum, there's no telling what will happen. I believe Greenwich was referring to what will happen on the Venezuelan side of things. Speaking for Guyana, the former minister said this: Guyana, on the other hand, plans to conform to international law. We have responsibilities. We have to protect our interest, and that is what we will do. He continued by saying, and I'm quoting here, the key thing is that at the level of the UN and of the court, it was made clear that they, referring to Venezuela, are not empowered to act on whatever comes out of the referendum. Let me know your views in the comment section, whether you're Guyanese, Venezuelan, or just have interest in this brewing showdown between the two nations. That's all for now. I will see you soon on The Final Takeaway. Here's that clip in Spanish to English translation.